Hello, everyone. Hello, South by Southwest. My name is Carrie Byron. You might recognize me formerly of Mythbusters. Currently, I have a show called Crash Test World. One thing I learned on Mythbusters was when you want to learn something, you find the experts in the field. So we have assembled here an amazing panel of experts to discuss the future of foods. These are all very special people to me because we've all had a little appearance on Crash Test World when we were talking about sustainable growing of foods and how to keep the world fed. We all know that we're moving into a future with more and more people, and the world is constantly growing in population. So how are we going to keep up the enormous ask for food production? How are we going to keep people healthy and happy when the diets that we eat are really going to predict that? Food's something we all have in common. Everybody eats, and it's important to the safety and stability of our families. So today we have Jenn Lovewell of Real Good Fish, Timothy Jackson and Nicole Lindsey of Detroit Hives, Michaela Ritz of Green Bronx Machine, and Monica Martinez of Don Bugito. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because nobody is a better advocate than they are for what they do. So I would like to start with talking about how important a varied diet is, and trying to eat more than the narrow diet that we have uh, in order to create a more sustainable way of eating, a more healthy way of eating. And Michaela, I know you with Green Bronx Machine are really doing a lot of work with this. So maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. So before I jump into me personally, just to give those who are unfamiliar some context, Green Bronx Machine is a nonprofit organization co-founded by Stephen Ritz and Lizette Ritz, who happen to be my parents. But apart from that, it's a Bronx-based organization that has spread nationally and internationally, focused on getting students to grow their own food directly in the classroom, going 0 miles to plate, and in the process, integrating curriculum, experiential learning, hands-on approach, project-based learning, and bringing all of those forces in together so that students not only transform their diets, their academics, their home lives, and it incorporates job training and intergenerational learning. So we're really touching a lot of different aspects through the remarkable tool that is food. And I'm involved by default, just because over the years of the nonprofit's existence, we've had indoor growing tools like the ones next to me, which are growing towers. And we've also done traditional outdoor farming as well. And so over the time that it's existed, I've been helping at the farm, doing tower maintenance, getting students to understand some of the beauty of growing food directly in the room. And I would say that it's been remarkable seeing how food is such a critical necessity in life, but it's also an amazing jumping off point in teaching. So in the communities that we serve, there's, I'd say, no shortage of bad food or unhealthy food, but there is a limited access to healthy, nutritious, local food. And so if you don't have those options available, we're kind of bucking that norm by making that option available here in school, where students have access every single day. And it's not limited just to the classroom, because then whatever we're growing can then go home, and you pass on the knowledge and you pass on the experience, and it gets everyone excited. And I think that's really remarkable.
How do you feel that kids are looking to the future as far as it comes to urban farming and sustainable greening?
It's kind of a huge transformational paradigm shift, because a lot of the students, when they join Green Bronx Machine or before they're introduced to the curriculum that Green Bronx Machine offers, students don't have an understanding of where their food comes from. A lot of the interaction students have with food is through, a cafeteria worker or a plastic bag or some other prepackaged marketed item. And so if you ask a student where their vegetables come from, they probably will tell you something like, aisle 9, or it comes from, the food truck, or it comes from the convenience store on the corner, but they can't tell you a source of where it's grown or if they may not conceptualize what growing is. So it's remarkable because we move from I don't know to you've told me to I seen it to I do it. And then once that curiosity is there, it expands across all aspects of their academic world. It's not just the food. Now it's science. Now it's math. Now it's reading. Now it's writing. I want to expand my horizon everywhere.
Detroit Hives is doing something very similar to what you're doing. You guys are educating people on where their food comes from as well. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your journey and mission.
Yeah, so Detroit Hives, once again, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization working to create sustainable communities and bee populations by transforming the many vacant lots in our city into educational apiaries and or green pollinator friendly spaces. We started our mission in of May 2017 by transforming an abandoned vacant lot that's been abandoned for over 10 years. And you can imagine what can happen on a vacant lot for over 10 years. The public health around blight, around crime, it lowers the value of the community. But being able to transform that into an outdoor learning space to not only benefit the bees in our environment, but also to support our community. Through revitalization, we've been able to host tours, educate local students on the importance of bee conservation, address the issue of food insecurity. There's a problem with the city. It's a food insecure city. Most residents don't have access to fresh organic food. Through the process of securing food security through cross-pollination, we're able to partner with local gardens. We're able to partner with local restaurants to provide fresh, local raw honey as a key ingredient to our residents.
And then being able to participate at farmers markets as well. And then sell at unique places through DoorDash and Grubhub.
Absolutely.
I don't think a lot of people think of cities as a place where it'd be hard to get food. Like that wouldn't be the automatic thought because there's so many people living there. I've even heard the word food desert, and they're talking about places where it seems like there should be a lot of access. Is that something that's new?
Well, there's access to food, but not access to healthy food. There's liquor stores, there's gas stations, there's fast food restaurants almost every corner that lacks nutritional value. It's loaded with sugar, it's loaded with grease, loaded with a lot of stuff that's not healthy. And we become victim of that because that's locally within our community. So we're trying to address that and combat that issue by creating or partnering with local gardens and using or helping our bees to find local sources of nectar and pollen so they're able to find fresh sources of local food. And in return, we're able to have local food through their pollination as well.
So also we've got Jenn over here from Real Good Fish. I would like to talk about you guys too. You are also doing an outreach to the community and teaching them about how to eat in a more sustainable way.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. So Real Good Fish was started in 2012 to combat some of the just mind-blowing things that are happening in the seafood industry, which I think a lot of Americans especially don't get to see. So between 60 to 90% of our seafood consumed in America is imported from other countries, meaning that it's traveled over 5,000 miles to reach our plates.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of jet lag. And I think the quality of the fish, you can really taste that jet lag. And through that journey, it also means that it's changed multiple hands, often been frozen and unthawed several times. And so we started Real Good Fish to really create a way that a community could support and enjoy their local seafood and support their local fishermen. And also really get those fishermen a chance to shine and have their stories be told. Because seafood tastes better, one, when it hasn't traveled 5,000 miles, and two, when you know the person that caught it and get to learn about them. And then again, the average age of American fishermen is 60 years old and aging. So a lot of our domestic fishermen are aging, and the younger people, the younger generations aren't getting into it. So we wanted to create something where again, a community could really come together and support people and some of these younger fishermen and give them a chance to really make a living feeding people in their backyard. So by contrast, our seafood typically travels less than 200 miles from fishermen to your homes and to your plates. And often you get to enjoy it some days the day after it was caught, or usually within a few days. And the difference in the taste, I think, is truly life-changing. And most people think that they might not like seafood, and we just think that they haven't truly tasted seafood that's fresh like this. And we also really use Real Good Fish as a platform to educate people about seafood and sustainability. And there's just a lot of unknowns around seafood. So we use, these really exciting weekly catches to get people excited and experiencing cooking adventures in their kitchen and trying new things. Most Americans eat the same 4 species of seafood.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I learned from you this little amazing fact is that there's so many different species of fish, and we really just eat 4 different kinds. And I have tasted fish that you guys have put into a box that I've never even heard of.
Yeah. And honestly, that's my favorite thing about what we do. So Americans eat the same 4 species, and that's shrimp, salmon, cod, and tuna. And so you can imagine all these people putting tremendous amounts of pressure on these 4 species, meaning we have to import it from other places because we can't sustain that much catch just here domestically. So we have to import it from all these other places. And meanwhile, there's an amazing abundance of really delicious, incredible fish is right in our shores. So we deliver to our members over 40 different species throughout any given year. And seafood has these incredible seasons. So most people don't know that like produce, seafood has seasonality. So there's certain species that come in the winter and the summer, and really making a point to kind of celebrate those changing of the seasons and really enjoy, fresh, salty, sweet Dungeness crab when it's around, and then celebrate salmon when it's here, and even enjoying smelt, which are little tiny fish, which are some of the most sustainable. And we give people recipes, and really want you to be empowered in the kitchen and try things with your kids and introduce them to cooking smelt, which when you deep fry them, you can also call them fries with eyes.
Yes, fries with eyes are delicious, and especially you got a good dip in sauce.
Delicious, nutritious, super sustainable, and just really fun to just try new things instead of eating those same 4 all the time, and really supporting a wide breadth of American fishermen, and spreading our love around to all these incredible seafood species, and have a lot of fun while doing it and trying new things.
Well, speaking of eating outside the box, we also have Monica Martinez here, who she works with she is Don Bugito, and she's really expanded my horizons on what is considered edible. I really never thought of the insect world as something that would be part of my diet, and now it is. Monica, can you tell us a little bit about your mission?
Yeah. Hi guys. So Don Bugito launched in 2011. And then the mission of Don Bugito is to introduce edible insects to the American food system. So it happens the United States is one of the few countries around the world who doesn't have edible insects in their diet. That must be a cultural thing. So 80% of the world around the world, consumes insects in some way or other. Not all insects are edible, of course. A lot of countries has specific insects based on the ecosystems of the country. I was raised in Mexico. In Mexico, we have over 500 varieties of insects. But in the United States, what we're doing actually, we are working with farm edible insects. So farm edible insects are, for example, like mealworms and crickets. So these insects, they have been actually farmed for a long time to feed chickens or to feed like farm fish. So you're eating chicken and fish, like farm chicken, farm fish, you are already eating insects. So the reason why they get feed insects is to pump the protein level. So what we thought about Don Bugito was like, why don't we get rid of the chickens and the farm fish and go straight to the protein. We know that insects are a source of high in protein foods. They're rich in fiber, omega-3, and many other amazing things like amino acids, and the list goes on and on. Also, one of the amazing things about including edible insects in your diet is that you add diversity to your food. So just like real food, real fish, people, you're trying to make your food diverse. So the more diverse your diet is, the more I guess the better for everybody, for the planet, for the species. Also, insects, a lot of people, you're afraid of like the yuck factor of insects, but it's just a cultural thing. You're not used to eating insects. Just trying to be a little more open-minded. Insects, the flavor of insects are very actually friendly. Most of insects that taste like nuts and seeds. So it's not some type of food that you're not familiar with. What else? There's so many more positive things about insects. I can keep talking nonstop.
Well, I mean, definitely one thing is like we are the farming and the industrialized meat farming system is not really great for the planet. And the more that we add population to this planet, it's going to be harder and harder to feed them proteins and vegetables. And so each of you in the mission that you have is really teaching the future of foods, like incorporating insects as an alternative protein, incorporating vegetables into your diet that you can form indoors with Green Bronx machine, and not overfishing just a couple different species is really expanding our horizons. And Detroit Hives, which are making a connection between the environment and the gardening. So I'm wondering if there is a little bit of a problem for Detroit Hives with the idea of eating insects. You guys are really close to bees. Would you do it?
Oh, man.
Do you know that beef
Yeah.
prawns, the ones that you guys don't want it, they taste like bacon.
Bees taste like bacon?
Like drones, like but so you get like
Drones?
like beekeepers, right? So there's a time where you get more drones than you actually need in the colony.
Mm-hmm.
So one way to deal with them is you can toast them, you can fry them, and they taste like bacon. They're really fatty.
Wow.
They have a lot of fat. Another pest for you guys, like the wax worms.
Uh-huh.
Wax worms that taste like pork rinds. We make some tacos with wax worms. They are amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Now, wax
Wow.
worms-
Okay. So how do you prepare a bee? Do you take because
It's not a bee. It's the drone.
the drone.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
drone.
larva, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, because we want to eat the wrong one because
Yeah,
What's
it's
the
the
male
male bees
bees?
inside the hive and honeybee hive.
Yeah, you don't want to kill the bees because we need bees, right?
But you can toast up a drone. We're doing all right. We can use it as a topping on some of the smelt that we haven't tried yet. Put it on a little salad coming out of Green
Right.
Bronx machine.
Yeah. So sometimes like larger kind of like bee farmers, they suffer with having too many drones. I don't know. Maybe you guys can explain what happened if you have too many drones. I'm not 100% sure. But I know I've been approached by a lot of beekeepers to trying to sell me their drones.
Yeah. So if a honeybee hive is filled with a bunch of drones don't do any work inside of the hive. Their main job is just to mate with the queen. So actually, once they mate with the queen, their testicles explode and they immediately die. So when you have a hive,
So the hive is less productive when you have so many drones inside the hive. They're just not getting no work done. So you want to have a hive that's I would say about 90% of worker bees,
Female
which are
worker bees.
females.
yeah.
Females do all the work inside and outside the hive.
I
Yeah,
got
so
so much
Monica,
snarky
we have to
conversation
give you
here. Well, maybe we could get a cooperation going with everybody here, because it sounds like we all have the same mission going on.
Right.
So it sounds like all of you guys are trying to diversify diets. How do you feel like that is going to make a more sustainable way for us to live?
Yeah, so again, just by diversifying, especially in seafood, but I think what applies to seafood applies to really everything and everyone that we're talking to here. And just I think one really helps us spread our pressures, but a lot of times too when like in a monocrop kind of agricultural system, that's not natural. So I think diversity is like the key to the natural world, and that's how the natural world has survived, is through diversity. So the more I think we can mirror what's happening in nature, because they've got it all figured out, mirroring that, I think it really lends itself to a more sustainable future. So having really diverse agricultural fields that everything works in a synergistic way and harmony. Same thing in the oceans. The oceans are incredibly diverse for a reason. And there's actually sometimes, if we don't fish a particular species and that fish stock rises too high, then it offsets all the balance of the ocean. So actually, fishing species can be good to help kind of keep that balance and control. And I think it's also a lot more fun to have a diverse diet and try new things. Eating the same things all the time can get really monotonous, and there's just a lot of whether it's bugs or tiny fish or all the different stuff, different greens that you can grow in your school cafeteria. There's just a lot more fun to be had when you're trying new things, and I think that's the key. Have fun while you're doing it and match nature, because they've got it figured out.
I see Monica in the background here is inside the farm right now. I've been in that room, so I know that she's like elbow deep right now. And what is it? Is it mealworms? What you got in there?
We got mealworms. I've been thinking, I am at the farm. Besides just like diversifying the diet, I think it's amazing that everybody here, right, is working on that. But one thing that makes me click is like, a lot of people ask us like, oh, how did you come up with this idea? And I was like, I didn't come up with any idea, right? This is not new. We're trying to rescue what we used to like do in the bag. So same thing for fish, same thing for like, like we used to be more local, central, like, more centralized. And then because everything kind of expanded and like, transportation and all that, then that's what kind of hurt our diets. So we're trying to like bring it back to be local, like that's one thing, and then trying to be open-minded that that's not what we're doing. I think what everybody's doing is it's not a new thing. We're just trying to rescue.
Detroit Hives is doing the same
like
thing.
a more
They're doing
healthy
community and local service with what they do. Do you guys have you guys found that the people that you work with and the kids that you work with are starting to really understand what it is to feed through community?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the children, a lot of times, like how was said earlier, how children didn't know exactly where their food is grown. A lot of people don't know why bees are so important, because they always think, oh, there's a pesky bee with a stinger that's always in my face and try to sting me. So a lot of people tend to like hate bees or don't dislike them. But when we tell them the difference, because a lot of times they're confused about bees and wasps, we want to let them know that, hey, these are two different species, but honeybees and all bees are pretty much responsible for 1/3 of the food that we eat. So they're responsible for your favorite fruits and vegetables being grown.
And just like humans, we require diverse diets, very similar to our pollinators, particularly honeybees. They require a diverse diet that consists of diverse plant species, native plant species that are crucial to their health.
Yep. So just like us, we don't want to be eating the same chicken dinner over and over again. We want a diverse palate. So maybe trying out bugs or trying different fish, because we only eat the same 4 fish, like Jenn said. So expanding our palate and not just over using a particular source of food. And that way it keeps the biodiversity going. So, because everything has a purpose in the world. And so we don't want to kill off that one animal or insect or fish that we eating because they have such a particular purpose. Just like with honeybees don't visit all flowers or vegetables. Just like with bumblebees, they're great for pollinating tomato plants. And so we need the diversity within the insect world, within the animal world, within the human race to keep the planet going.
Right. And Michigan is home to over 450 different type of native bee species. We want to be able to support bee diversity. And just like Nicole mentioned, with tomato plants, they require a heavier buzz to shake that pollen. And a honeybee or any other smaller bee cannot do that. That can only be the work of a bumblebee. So that's why here at Detroit Hives, we do believe in bee diversity. And not all of our sites support honeybees, but we also have sites that support our native pollinators or native bees. And Michigan is once again home to 450 of them.
Wow, that's some great work you guys are doing. You know, I've noticed that at least for me growing up, for me to eat organic or seasoned or sustainably, it's been kind of expensive. How can we level the playing field here? How can we make it so that it's accessible for everybody, no matter where you live or your economic status?
So I can start on that one. And I think one of the important things to start is going where those diverse groups of people are already at the table, so to speak. So we work with local school systems. Al and I created a program called Bay to Tray, where we connect local fish to local school districts. So kids get to enjoy local fish in their school cafeterias. And we also work with universities and food banks. So really making sure that local seafood isn't just accessible for the people who can pay for it, but making sure that everyone gets access to that, healthy, nutritious product that they have, just as much right to. And I think, we worked really hard to find partners who supported that mission and a great product. And a lot of times I think these more charitable activities, have to come with a lot of funding or political support. But we, made it was really important to us to make sure that it could be a sustainable program and that, we partnered with people who really were committed to making it happen. And I was the director of nutrition for when we first started serving fish in the cafeteria. And it was awesome. We sold more local fish tacos than we did our homemade pizza, and we made really good pizza. But kids, when you really make something accessible to them and exciting, I think it's really cool to see how they react.
Monica, how do you introduce bugs to insect eating to your community?
Yeah, so we the first 4 years of the business was definitely about educating, like heavily educating people. We were like a street level. I call it street level because we were in every food festival in the city, street food festivals. We did a lot of outreach. Obviously, we got all these organizations that would ask us to come and do samples and tests. We have done a lot. We have worked with a lot of schools. We had kids coming into the farm to learn about how insects get reproduced. The first 4 to 5 years definitely was no money making at all, because it was based actually, on educating people. We still had to educate people, but now, like you would say, like at least 80% of people have here or have a family member who have an experience with insect, like they either have eaten or have seen somebody eating an insect. So at least the fact of knowing the edible insects, so there's edible insects, insects can be food, that is now open. I mean, also we've been very lucky with media and press. That has helped us a lot also. We work at the beginning with an organization, La Cocina, which is a nonprofit food incubator for women here in San Francisco. And that also helped a lot to give us like some kind of like backup support, but people take us like seriously, that we're not just like these crazy people preaching about insects, but it was like we were like a real food business. So that's, yeah, I mean, it's still a challenge, but every day is getting definitely more, acceptance. Yeah.
I mean, I think we definitely have to change our diets and open our minds about what we can eat and what we should eat, because there's just not going to be enough food if we overfish or eat the same foods or just, eat what we find at the liquor store. We absolutely have to vary our diets. How do you guys feel about the future going forward with food production and the directions you guys are taking it? Or better yet, I know it's really hard to introduce new foods to adults. Kids seem to be a little more open-minded. So I like that you guys are all working with education. How do you get kids to try new things? How do you get them to try the vegetables that you guys grow, considering that that's not necessarily part of their everyday diet?
One solution, hide it in something else and don't tell them what it is. Solution number 2, present it to them as is and say, go for it. You might like it. Solution number 3, combine a little bit of the two and give them something they recognize and something they don't and say they're one and the same and let them figure it out from there.
I think a lot of times, a lot of teens or children, they see a lot of stuff on TV and they're sometimes subconsciously programmed to think vegetables are nasty. I will always watch television and they'll always be like, oh, Brussels sprouts or asparagus. And we kind of inherit those that subconsciously. So I think the best way to really get children to enjoy vegetables is sometimes have them be a part of it, have them plan it. I think when they plan it and they actually are invested in it, they want to try it, have them cook it, have them be a part of it, and I think that will be one way for them to at least try. Like, hey, I planted it, I want to at least make a salad out of it and see what it tastes like.
Yeah.
That will get them curious about it.
Yeah, and even when it comes to trying honey, because a lot of kids haven't tried honey like in a honeycomb or fresh from the hive. They're so used to seeing it in a little bear container. So when we have children come out and visit our bee farm and they actually get a chance to actually suit up and they do like a live hive inspection, and we talk about how, bees go out and they bring the nectar in and how they do the process of it. Kids are kind of a little more curious and open. And then, we taste it and be like, oh, it's so good, it's so sweet. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, let me try to give it a little try. Want to give it a little try. And so once they taste it and they like, wait, this doesn't taste like what I've been having before, like in the store, because it is a different taste when you have it like honey that's been in the store, because sometimes it's not real honey.
Unfortunately,
yeah,
most honeys in the store is not real honey. It's either labeled with high fructose corn syrup, beet syrup, or it's pasteurized. It's missing the floral taste. It's missing the pollen, and it's overall just a syrupy type of combination that's really not good.
Yeah,
nor good.
Why bother with that? That's insane. Why not just call it sugar water? I've tasted your guys' honey before, straight out the hive. It's amazing. It's such a different experience.
Thank you.
And I think that's what it's all about too, is creating those experiences for you. They would have never had the opportunity within their own community.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's why we created, because at the time, me and Timothy weren't exposed to that as children. We didn't have anywhere in the neighborhood that we can go to see bees or even purchase local raw honey. We didn't know where to get local raw honey from Detroit. So that's why we kind of came up with this, this idea and creating this nonprofit and focusing on education and conservation to actually let the children experience this with going inside the hive and tasting local fresh raw honey. And once the children are excited, they're going to spread the word. And they'll get their parents excited, their friends excited. We have so many children who were scared to come in at first to our bee farm. And then the next thing you know, they done told their siblings and their friends. And now the teachers are contacting us from another grade and they're all excited and they want to come visit. So, yeah.
I think that's what we got to do. We got to get them through the kids, because I learned so much through my daughter. And if she's going to try something, of course, I'm going to try something. And I'm thinking about this, like before 1930, maybe 20, nobody knew what a chewing gum was. They didn't know what bubble gum tasted like. And now it's common. Like, but 15 years ago, if you told somebody to eat sushi, they might be like, ew, what? Raw fish. So the insect industry and alternative fishes, I feel like maybe we are just going to start to develop that diversity in our diet if we start looking to businesses like sushi.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how, do you think that that's a good way to get people to eat bugs?
Yeah, we use that sample a lot. and then about like how 10, 15 years ago, sushi was such a weird and gross, food item in the United States. And now you can find sushi, eaters literally in every neighborhood. Which that brings up, I talk about fish sustainability, but other thing I was thinking is so funny that I was talking to a friend this morning about bees are like, oh my, in general, we consider bees to be friendly, except, some people think, oh, they're going to attack me and that. But I was thinking, wait a minute, actually, honey is the vomit of the bee. Like honey comes from like the bee vomiting. So, that's a fact that a lot of people don't know. And then we usually use that a lot about when I ask, people say like, well, what do you think about bees? You like honey? And people are like, yeah, of course. Like that has nothing to do with edible insects. I was like, well, do you know that honey is actually the vomit of a bee? And then people like changes the perception, but but they already accept that food. It doesn't matter. So it's just really interesting to see what changes or how the psychology of food, right? We have also a lot of kids that they never had an insect, and after it gets like after trying a little bit, like, come on, try it. It tastes good. I promise you. It's like good texture, good flavor. And after they put it in their mouth, they eat it. They're like, oh my God, it doesn't taste like an insect. So then like, what do an insect taste like? And they're like, oh, it tastes like such and such, like a pumpkin seed or like a nut. And so that opens another conversation, and that immediately opens a new world for them, but anyway.
And that's how you guys get kids. You get kids through tacos too, it sounds like.
Yeah.
My first cricket was on a taco, so I'm thinking tacos might be the gateway.
Yeah, I used to call them the gateway drug for for getting kids on fish. But I think we've been talking a lot of like perception and being open-minded, and I think that's a lot with kids. When I was at the schools, people would come in and say like, oh, kids don't like fish, or kids aren't going to eat that. And it's like, why? Like, we just put these we put our own perceptions and like project them onto the kids and don't give them a chance. And we should give kids a lot more credit for what they do and can do. And just having people tell me that just motivated me even more to say like, oh, okay, I'll show you that kids like fish. And and you just make it a celebration, and you make it exciting, and you make it safe. You don't make it forceful. You just make it something that's, you want to try it. If not, maybe tomorrow, and give them a sticker. Kids will do anything for a sticker.
Yes. You can potty train them. You can get them to do anything.
Yeah, even like the high school kids, we'd give them a sticker for trying fish, and they were like, really, and like tell their friends, but I think really making it a celebration, and kids take a lot of their cues from us. So I think it starts with us and like changing our own perception. I think like Monica mentioned, bugs are really common in other cultures, and same with seafood. Seafood is so ubiquitous throughout the world, and in these really diverse cultures. In a lot of places, they eat the whole fish. They eat the heads, they eat the eyes, and really celebrate that whole fish, that whole being, and make sure that none of it goes to waste. They eat the skin, they eat the bones. Just making sure like there's all these like different ways you can prepare different parts of the fish. If you fry the bones of like the small fish in
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you eat the bones?
You fry them in some oil, and then it softens them, and then they taste like popcorn, and there's all these cultures that really like have gotten onto that before we have. And I think looking at diverse cultures and diverse diets, I think we as Americans can learn a lot from them. And in sustainability, and really making sure and really utilizing like the whole part of the fish, and just being a lot more open-minded to it.
Have you seen a shift in your industry at all to get off the 4 basics?
I mean, I think it might be difficult because we're so deep in it, and so the people that we work with are awesome, and like send us pictures of their kids eating fish bones. So I think it's a little difficult, but I think, things like COVID really shone a big light on the local food system and the resilience of it, and how easily a globalized food system can falter and fall short. So I think, certain things like that help bring to light some of these really important topics around local and sustainable foods. But I think it's growing. I think not as fast as it could be. But yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we're just so deep in it and surrounded by really amazing people that it seems like good things are happening. So I'm gonna stay in my little world and think that.
Yes. I mean, all of you guys are educating your communities on how to eat differently. I mean, how has the pandemic affected the journeys you guys are on for changing how people think about food?
So the pandemic made a unique opportunity to highlight how fantastic and unique Green Bronx Machine is. Because while many nonprofits, schools, businesses, communities really felt things start to crumble and deteriorate, Green Bronx Machine leveled up. So where there were cracks already and then they deepened because of COVID-19, Green Bronx Machine lessened the gaps, filled in the cracks, and ramped up operations and made things seamless so people didn't have to feel this drought of food, this drought of access, this gap in what they could actually have in terms of consumable food, social interaction, and a sense of community belonging. When COVID-19 first hit, there was this whole kind of confusion and chaos among schools of, well, do we keep kids at home? Do we have them return to the building? But Green Bronx Machine took all of the tools that were at our disposal, and we immediately moved learning online. So it was virtual, but those students that were online still received hand-delivered groceries to their door so that they could have participation in a cooking lesson the next day, but they didn't have to feel like they didn't have the ingredients, so they had to be excluded or left out. They were all tied in every sense of the word.
We definitely saw, at least with us, with the edible insect, people move to buy like more safe and food they're more familiar with. And then you could see in the markets, right? Like all the flour products, baking goods. I mean, everything was gone. We definitely got hit big time because most of the stores stopped purchasing kind of like the weird items. We are in that category. And they were purchasing more like, garbanzo beans, like all these like more like staple type of foods. We were closed for like, I think 3 to 4 months last year, but hopefully we are, we're getting back, definitely.
How about Detroit Hives?
I think in response to COVID with the stay-home shelter, it's actually been very beneficial to insects and wildlife in our environment. There's been a very low emission of carbon emissions. A lot of the factories were shut down. We have so many factories in the city, so very little to no pollution through those few months. Also, you had very few people that were driving; they were staying inside. You had people that wasn't even mowing the lawns. The city wasn't mowing the lawns, so we see an abundance of native plant species. There's been actually report of way more insects. They see an increase in yellow jackets. They see an increase in native bees, and this has been very helpful for our pollinators. So in a way, the stay-at-home shelter gave the environment a break, but also too, people became more health conscious. They're looking for ways to consume herbs. They're looking for ways to consume essential oils that combat any type of health issues they had, but also local raw honey and beeswax candles. Local raw honey is great for asthma. It's great for your immune system. Also, beeswax candles, the real beeswax, is great for respiratory therapy. So we've seen an increase of people purchasing health products. We even responded by creating Be Well care packages. It was a call to action whereby we create these essential care packages of our local raw honey. We work with local businesses to provide meals, give away gift cards to our local heroes, our frontline responders, and healthcare workers as well.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. We love it. We really do love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that all of you guys are in love with what you do, and that's clearly why you do it. If there's one thing you would want somebody to know about your industry and what you do, like if you were just gonna have one takeaway, what would it be?
What I would like people to walk away from this knowing is that Green Bronx Machine doesn't just grow food. What we're really growing are people, students, and communities. So as much as it is about the food, because food is so essential in so many ways, what it's really about is community building, skill set building, social, emotional learning, and building that all together on top of one another so that we can leverage the emotional, social, and academic growth into a paradigm shift, a community shift, something that's beneficial for families, schools, businesses, communities, all different levels and scales of people.
I think that it's that seafood should absolutely be a part of your life, no matter what your goals are. If your goals are to be healthier, if your goals are to eat better and more sustainably, if you're following one of the like trendy food diets, keto, or like seafood just is as a part of that. Or if you're a new mom and cooking is, or maybe even not even a new mom, but just a mom or a family where you're trying to cook more at home, but are limited in time, seafood can be done and ready on the table in just as low as 5 to 10 minutes. So I think, a lot of times we see seafood as something you eat on a special occasion at a restaurant, because it's not as prolific in our American diets and culture. But I think seafood, I would prepare it for my newborn for breakfast sometimes. I would just cook up black cod for breakfast because it's as quick as cooking an egg, and way more nutritious. So I think just, seafood is it's so important to get in your diet for health reasons, and it's really one of the best sustainable options, and is a lot more easy to incorporate into your regular life than you may realize. And also that when you have really fresh seafood, you don't have to do much to it. Like you can really just do salt, pepper, and some lemon, and you're good to go. Like truly fresh seafood doesn't need anything fancy done to it.
Maybe a little bit of like fancy honey, like fresh honey, possibly a little bacon sprinkle of some fried drone.
Exactly.
Like some garnish. What about you guys, Detroit Hives? What would be your one takeaway from what you guys are trying to communicate about the future?
I think we both go back and forth, but I think our one takeaway is that it's not just the bees that's benefited from our project. We're actually using bees to kind of help secure, beautify our neighborhood through cross-pollination. We're combating food security and just working to really support our neighborhood, and it's people, planet, and pollinators. So.
Yeah, so we're bringing our communities together. We all share one common thing, is that we all love food, and food is a necessity. So we're bringing our communities together through honey and bees by transforming vacant lots, providing education, but also providing cross-pollination for our local gardens as well.
Yeah. And working with local restaurants to use our honey as a key ingredient.
Yeah, and then also supporting local businesses, because we connect with local businesses and provide our honey as a key ingredient.
It's a win-win for all.
I eat a lot of honey from the local hives in my neighborhood, so I'm feeling that one.
Oh yeah.
How about you, Monica? What is what do you want people to learn most from what you guys are doing?
I think that, just the fact that people were thinking I ate something new, like, that they open their minds that insects can be food. I think that's, that's the biggest gain. When people never even quite thought about it in United States. So knowing that at least, like I think I mentioned this early, like at least 80% of the people have at least have here or known the insects can be food. That is a huge gain from when we started to now. And then also there's a lot more about the farming side of insects. There's a lot of potential for farming insects in a more holistic way and kind of reject industrial farming practices. Insects have we call it superpowers, where they reserve their own energy. They become lethargic when temperature drops to reserve energy. They thrive again when warm, comes back, like the sun rises. So if we learn to respect those cycles on, when we grow in farming insects, that's a huge potential for thinking differently on on farming. A lot of people think that you think that way more holistically, you're not gonna be able to yield for like, you know, industrial capacities, but that's not true. It's just a different way. I think insects have, there's a huge space for us to learn. It's such a new thing. So I feel like there's no reason why we should replicate industrial farming practices when farming insects. So there's a lot space to do it right. So that there's also, I mean, a huge part that people need to learn that. So we are trying to teach that now. It's our second teaching.
I actually
phase
do.
of
I think
Bugito.
that insects are going to become a really mainstay in our diet in the next, by 2050. I think it's going to be something that we're going to need to do. We're going to need a protein source that isn't industrialized meat production. And it just seems like an obvious choice. I think that there's a lot to think about in diversifying our diets and the sustainable future and changing the way that all of us eat in everywhere that we are. So I'm so happy to have been able to talk to this many experts all at once. I want to thank my amazing panel. I feel like every time I talk to them, I learn a little bit more about the future of food, and I hope you guys did too. Please follow all of them on their social feeds so you can find out more about what they're doing.